Welcome back. This is season 2 of Cooking with Richie. I'm Richie. As you can see, I am not in my kitchen. I'm actually in my recording studio doing some post-editing for my cooking videos. But I'm most excited about introducing you to a new podcast segment hosted by me. This will feature nutritionists, dietitians, physical therapists, coaches, and people who have recovered from serious health issues. These pre-recorded podcasts will allow us to explore the powerful connections between nutritional diets, holistic health practices, and managing chronic health conditions. What are the goals for this podcast? Educational insight to provide expert nutritional advice and health strategies from seasoned professionals. To share inspirational stories from people who have successfully managed their health conditions through dietary changes and lifestyle adjustments. Recipe integration to include specific recipes and cooking tips tailored to support a healthy heart, liver, kidney, and mental health. And what a great way to start off my first podcast with a dear friend of mine, Cathy Merkel-Roddy. She has a great story to share. With no further ado, let's just get right into it. Thank you. Cathy, welcome to my very first podcast. I'm so happy that you're here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh my God.
I'm excited to be here.
We met years and years ago. We've known each other. We've worked together. And you're very proud to say that you can still do this because something happened years ago that almost ended your career as a singer. I want you to tell me or tell the audience your story of what had happened.
Sure, I'd love to.
It's all you.
Thank you. So back in 2018, I was hit with a cavalcade of over 30 neurological symptoms. I was afflicted most upsettingly with a condition of the voice called SPASMODIC DYSPHONIA. So that's basically a condition in which the brain is no longer communicating with the voice or the vocal cords. The vocal cords are perfectly fine. It's not like a lack of ability to function. It's just they're not receiving the proper signals. Right. At the same time that happened to me, like I said, I had over 30 symptoms hit me like a ton of bricks. So dizziness, I got really sensitive to any sort of stimulus at all, like light, sound, temperature, anything like that just set my nervous system off. And then in addition, my voice, whenever I tried to speak, it was very breathy and I couldn't produce sound. And then it would make me feel physically ill to even try to talk. So I suffered with this like nausea and headaches as a result of that. I got horrible fatigue. I got, I had dry mouth, constant thirst, just tons. And I had a constant spasm all the way from my right eye down the side of my body to my right hip, which was constantly vibrating in my body. So you couldn't see it from the outside, but I could feel it constantly. So I couldn't sleep. I couldn't rest fully. It was just really poor quality of life. So this happened after a traumatic experience. So a lot of things go into our health. We think of ourselves as physical beings often, but really and truly our emotional state, our energetic state, and our mental state, obviously, all go hand in hand with our physical body.
Speaking of which, what was your mental state when this happened? I mean, this just hit you.
Oh,
what was going through your mind?
It was a nervous breakdown for me, for sure, because I had this emotional trauma, then had a trickle-down effect immediately to physical manifestations of basically dysfunction in my body all over the place. So, of course, I was on my knees. I was desperate. So before my health went completely off the cliff, I was getting little whispers of things starting to go wrong. Mm-hmm. But I was sort of ignoring them and figured that it would turn itself around eventually. And I did seek out several ear, nose, and throat doctors for my voice because it was starting to misbehave. And there's several things that happened that started that ball rolling, which 2 times I got the flu within 3 months of each other. I was doing a high fat, high protein diet versus eating lots of fruits and vegetables, which is what I do now. But I had a multitude of different things. I was using caffeine in the morning and alcohol at night, so that was not good. Plus a lot of over-the-counter medications, things like Tylenol sinus, things like Zantac. That's something for heartburn. So I was basically slowly poisoning myself and I didn't realize it.
Right.
Because I was just trying to mitigate the symptoms that were starting to pile on. Now that I'm looking back on it, I was starting to have some neurological problems in my throat, but I was blaming it on the sinuses, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
And so thinking that perhaps it was my sinuses were blocked versus the access to, those parts of your voice where you're lifting your soft palate and where your nose and your throat kind of come together. So when I went off the cliff, I started searching. When I had gone to the ear, nose, and throat doctors, they finally did diagnose me with spasmodic dysphonia. I was kind of in denial. I did not want to put a label on my condition. And I also just was I had so much shame around it because I was always known for my voice. And that's how I made my living for years and years. And so I was really, really embarrassed and I wanted to hide it at all costs. I did not want anyone to know what I was going through. They said, all we can offer you really is these injections of Botox into your throat. And it may work, it may not work, but there's X, Y, and Z side effects. And I was like, okay, that does not seem like a good trade-off for me. Right. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna explore some other options, seeking some alternative therapies. Luckily, about 4 months into my search, a friend of mine sent me a video which was about celery juice and the benefits of the healing properties of celery juice. I listened to that little radio show podcast thing, and I was really blown away because it was something that was produced by the medical medium Anthony William. And he laid out such a great case for why not only celery juice would help any sort of situation, but the root cause of all these neurological things that I was experiencing was an Epstein-Barr virus strain. I had Epstein-Barr virus when I was 12, and it was a really big impact on my health at that point. That's the virus that gives you mono. I knew I had mono. I was laid out for weeks and weeks with mono, really sick. I experienced a lot of extra symptoms after that never went away. Things like, insomnia, brain fog. Those things would, depending on my immune system or, how run down I was, it would creep up here and there throughout my life ever since I was 12. So I knew Epstein-Barr was something that I had dealt with and it made sense to me. Here I felt like, okay, I have no choice. My life is at a complete standstill. I can't work, I can't function, I can't barely get through the day. Luckily, it wasn't pain for me. I know a lot of people who have these types of chronic illnesses have a lot of extreme pain in their bodies, and I'm thankful that was not the case. But if you can just imagine, just the constant spasm in your body. So it was a rough time for sure. I decided I was going to go all in, trying some nutritional advice from the medical medium. I immediately started reading medical medium books, and I sought out anybody who was talking about it online. I was looking for YouTubers out there that were doing it, or... Isn't
it amazing that we've never did that before until something critical happens and all of a sudden you're there and you have to make this change and you're vested in your new lifestyle.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Oh my God. You got me chills.
The great news is, so the bad news was I got 30 symptoms overnight. The good news was that I got 30 symptoms overnight. So in his books, he doesn't write about spasmodic dysphonia. He doesn't say too much about voice disorders at all. Okay. I had to kind of do my own investigative connecting the dots for myself to figure out a protocol that would work to help me heal not only my voice, but all the other symptoms as well. So he writes about the vertigo. He writes about the sensitivity to, nervous system sensitivity to light and sound and temperature. He talks about all that and the spasms and the ticks and the things like that. So I just utilized a lot of the protocols that he recommended for those things. I had plenty to work on, and I started implementing the recommendations. So it's very much focused on eliminating the foods that feed the viruses in our bodies, because according to the medical medium, all of our conditions except for mesothelioma are caused by a combination of 4 things. Pathogens like Epstein-Barr, but there's 60 strains of Epstein-Barr, there's 30 strains of shingles, there's 30 strains of streptococcus, there's cytomegalovirus, there's herpes simplex viruses, there are HHV viruses, 1 through 6 or however many there are. A bazillion of viruses out there. We all know this, right?
Yes.
And they're always evolving, they're mutating, they're constantly changing. So I decided I was going to follow this protocol, eliminate all the foods that feed those viruses. So things like eggs, dairy, gluten are the big 3 to begin with. Then you throw in soy, corn, canola oil, and pork in addition. Everybody knows that there's a lot of chemicals in our processed food.
Yeah.
There's a various sundry list of secondary things that I had to eliminate as well, but I'm not gonna, for the sake of this podcast not being
right,
I'm gonna just leave it at that for now. But obviously I just tried to eat whole foods, and I prepared the majority of my foods in my kitchen myself. And that's the safest way to do anything, because you know exactly what's going in there. And I just started slowly, not slowly enough, unfortunately, because I went gung ho,
Now we were talking like about a week ago. Didn't you say that when you started this, you were actually going in the wrong direction?
I went too hard, too fast.
You went too hard, too fast, and you started your symptoms actually started getting worse and not better. Even though you had the right intentions and you were doing the right things. And I actually was reading your and what you don't build Rome in a day. You go slow, but you didn't, and neither did same thing happened to me. I juicing every single day. No, I get nutrients, and no, it was worse for me. But yes, I get it, and you're right. But
so you can overdo it. So the pathogens in our bodies, the radiation that's all around us from our electronics, from various things, microwaves, etc. Then DDT that's in the soil that's lingering on. And also heavy metals. Heavy metals are used in pesticides, they're used in cosmetics, they're used in household cleaning products, they're used in fragrance and blah, blah, blah.
Lotions and
Yes, all those things. So those 4 things. What happens is the body basically gets a toxicity overload, and it starts to break down because we have a combination of many of those things, possibly all of them at any given time, multiple things hitting on us, plus our emotional state, plus our stress level at work, or our demands physically on us. So you can start turning it around by obviously detoxing some of those things out of your body, by eliminating the foods that I talked about before. That's one way. Then there's other things like you're talking about. You talked about juicing earlier. That's another thing that highly detoxes your body. It adds hydration to your body. It adds minerals. So our bodies run on glucose and minerals. Those are the 2 things that we absolutely need every single day, at every minute, every day. Our brain functions on those things. You can get to a situation when you're super toxic. The sicker you are, the more toxicity there is in your body, which then is kind of counterintuitive. So the slower you need to go, because when you have that level of toxicity, obviously your lymphatic system is not able to eliminate toxins as quickly as they're coming in.
Especially when you have a life-threatening ailment that happened to you. And now your body is now compromised, which we're all supposed to be taking steps and eating the vegetables and nutrients, and we're supposed to, but we don't. And I don't know many people that do. And I go to work and I see people sitting there eating their hoo-hoos and drinking their power juices, and that was me. that was me. I did that, and I know that you were doing stuff like that and just crazy stuff, but we don't think about it. But then when we get hit with a life debilitating and we come through on the other side, then we wake up and it's like, oh my God. And then we start the repairing, the restoring, the restoration, all that. And oh my God, but all those metals and stuff like that, we're in our bodies all the time,
It's so true. And as we age, we collect them.
Yeah.
So especially, and then if we're not detoxing them out, then we're getting this cumulative effect. And that's why people, as they age, develop health problems. It's because they're at maximum toxicity. When you're a baby, if you're lucky, you're born without all that stuff. Now, some babies are born with some toxins and they're handed down through their parents. And so it happens. But theoretically, as we age, we accumulate toxins, and then that's what contributes to all of our health problems.
Right.
So, but you can start doing stuff too quickly, which is what I did. And there was no place for those toxins to go. So they basically, I did these cleanses that were prompting my liver to release the toxins that were in it. And it cooperated and it released the toxins, but then it just floated around my bloodstream and went nowhere. It just further inflamed my nerves. Yep. So it's crazy how just finding that right balance. And so that's one of the big things that I try to do now, because I am a health, practitioner. Yes. I'm a health coach now, and I do help other people with their journeys. And that's my number one thing. I try to take them in hand and lead them in a slow fashion that their bodies can handle. We do all sorts of monitoring, with them, because we don't know if they're a sensitive detoxer or not.
Right.
And each person is different. We all have a different toxic load and a different ability to eliminate those toxins. So as we're moving through things, I always say slow is best. And when we start a new supplement or anything like that, or even celery juice is a big, beautiful healing tool, because it has tons of minerals in it that your neurotransmitters need in your brain, your hormones. Those are the building blocks for the insulin in the body. Basically, that's how you communicate. The minerals is how the body communicates with all the systems of the body, I should say. But you got to start slow, because celery juice will make you a good friend with your bathroom.
Yeah. I have a question for you. As you know, I am not a seasoned professional. I'm only 3 years into my journey, and I have actually just started doing this podcast to meet people like you, who can help guide me, and all the people that are following me are meeting you for the first time. Yeah. As far as when you talk about a balance of, do you talk to your clients and say, listen, stay in touch with your doctors, your PCP doctor, and maintain that balance? Because I don't want anybody to be watching this video or any videos and think that, hey, listen, this is what I need to do. Not what the doctors. You have to stay with the regimens the doctors are giving you, because they're watching your blood work. They're looking at your health. They're checking you. And as your numbers improve, you can say, hey, I follow Cathy Merkel-Roddy. She's been teaching me this and stuff. And you meditate. We'll get into the meditation later, but all the positive things that you've done, and I've done that too. And I've always, when I talk about in these future podcasts, I'll always say, consult your doctor. Make sure, don't just get off the medicines and say, I'm just going to do this holistic stuff like that. No, don't do that. Do not. Because we don't want to be responsible for you getting worse, because your doctors know best, but we are a guide on the other side. To kind of harmoniously bring the two of you guys together, and eventually maybe the doctor will say, hey, baby, you're so good, we'll start taking you off some of these medicines, blah, blah, blah. And and then I was on 17 medicines when I got out of the hospital. But look at me. I'm healthy, and I'm on one medicine right now. Just one.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. And the doctor, as I've been looking online and going on YouTube and TikTok and finding all these really cool juices and meals, what works for me. And man, that's why I'm doing my cooking show, because I find stuff and I'm like, I want to bring them to you, because if they can help me, I want to bring them to you. So
yeah, I think we're like-minded like that. That's a great point. That's awesome that you point out the whole, always consult with your doctor.
Yes.
Absolutely correct.
Yes.
And then, I think we're like-minded. We like to just share what we learn along the way.
Yes.
And so it's like, hopefully people are waking up to these facts that nutrition can be such a game changer for their quality of life.
Yes.
So I think sometimes until you've lived it and you've experienced that, it's hard to believe that simply changing your diet would do that much, but it really can.
It does. It does. It really does. But when you talk to people who haven't experienced what we've experienced, there's always an excuse. Do you experience that? I don't like beets. Beets don't taste good. No, I don't like ginger because ginger makes me gassy. Blah, blah, blah. No, that's until
I agree. Well, here's what I've had to learn, because when I first was on my healing journey, and this is back before I got the full-fledged healing done. Early on in my journey, I just intuitively knew I was on the right path. So I would send people books. I would just send them in the mail or drop them off at their house, and thinking, oh my gosh, this has the answer for you in it. And they wouldn't read them. And because they weren't ready, it wasn't their journey. This was my journey. These things spoke to me and resonated with me, and I was ready to do it. Not everybody's there. And so that's been the biggest challenge for me, just respecting everyone where they are in their journey.
Exactly.
They're all in their own trajectory, and there's nothing I can do to bring them around. You can lead a horse to water. You can't make them drink.
Right.
And so you just gotta, if they ask me, I can talk for days, as we all know, about this subject and more. But unless they want to know, I have learned over the years to just, keep it to myself unless they're, specifically tuned in to hear my message or, whatever.
Yes.
In my personal life, I'm not talking about my channel. Obviously, that's what I talk about in my channel and stuff. And mostly in my personal life, I'll throw little tidbits like, this food is great for this, or have you thought of a simple change that everyone can make is drinking 32 ounces of lemon water first thing in the morning in an empty stomach. Yep. That's like a small change, and that's something almost anyone can do. I don't care how busy you are. I don't care if your budget is strong.
Yep.
You can. I think everybody could squeeze in a little bit of lemon water every day.
Absolutely. Yep.
So that's already an improvement, and that'll already start detoxing you and helping to move things along. So.
Okay. So moving forward, we had discussed about the mind, the body, and the spirit of your journey, and I want you to share with me what you have discovered. And
so when I initially started my journey, I was focused mostly on the food and the detox for my body on a physical level. After about a year into my journey, I realized that I had some other emotional things and energetic things to kind of deal with that were kind of looming. That those are the hard things to deal with, and often people don't want to look at that. Right. So that's the hard work. The food stuff obviously is a sacrifice too, to stay on protocol and do all that stuff. But also I realized that I needed to feed my mind as well as my body. So
how so?
I don't know if you've ever noticed, but in your mind, your brain has this tendency to have these things I like to call drones, these thoughts that are droning incessantly in your brain, usually telling you some not so nice things about yourself. And also, in my case, my nervous system was way out of whack. So my brain was sending me a lot of missed signals, about danger or about prompting me to be in fight or flight or on alert at all times. So what I realized is that I had to learn some tools to learn to redirect my thoughts, rewire my brain, because so the neural pathways that are happening in our brains, they like to go to the path of least resistance. Our brain is like a field of high grass. So we have this high grass, and then you walk through it one time and you sort of tamp down the grass on that path. So next time you want to cross that field, you'll probably take that same path so that you can further tamp it down. Then by the time 3 or 4 or 5 times you've gone that same path, suddenly you have a little pathway in your brain made. So the brain works very much like that. So our brain goes on default. We're not conscious of it. It just happens.
Path of least resistance, Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the thoughts that we had yesterday are probably many of the same thoughts that we're going to experience today, unless we suddenly become aware of that and go, okay, is that thought helping me heal right now? Perceiving, when that traumatic thing happened to me back in 2018, I got a different worldview about life and about trusting people and about, how guarded I needed to be all the time.
Right.
And I closed my heart.
Right.
I closed my heart. And I also, basically started living in constant fight or flight. So I had to kind of unwind that and learn how to replace the thoughts that were happening all the time with just a little tiny shift. And you do this because you have to get in touch with who you are at your core. What is your identity? Who are you at your basis level? We all have so many different identities. At work, you're one thing. At home, you're a husband, you're a friend, we all take on we wear all these different hats. Right. But we do have some general things about that we believe about ourselves and identify with. So I'll just use an example here. So I used to be constantly late to things. I was constantly running late. 15 minutes late. So that was my identity, right? And so I had these beliefs that then are supported by that identity, which are, that's just, I can never be on time is my belief. Right. Or I am
just accept it.
I am, or what's not that big of a deal, or whatever, however many things you want to load onto that. So basically, when I realized that was all a bunch of BS, basically, that my identity as a late person is total BS. I am capable of being on time places. And also, I can lay the groundwork that it's completely okay, even though, forging a new identity, I can be on time or even a little bit early without feeling guilty and shameful that all those other times that I was late. So sometimes we want to stay in our same lane and do the same things that we've done, because then we have to acknowledge that what we're doing is not cool or not great, then we feel guilt and shame around it. And so we don't want to change it because we just want to blindly just keep doing what we're doing. So when you change your identity into someone who is, I can't say I'm always early, but I can say I am someone who is actively making an effort to be more on time. That's a new identity. That's a little bit of a shift.
Small steps. Yeah.
And that's the key to all of this. If you have to take nothing else away from this podcast, 1% change a day is all you need to do.
Before we go on any further, I want to promote your website. And I'm going to put this on, so why don't you talk about your website, and I will actually put on the screen your webpage. But go ahead, tell us about how can people connect with you through here.
Absolutely. So my website is CathyMerkel-Roddy.com. And that has a lot of I have some blog posts that they can, read, and
Huge.
That, kind of might be a good stepping stone into talking more about what it is that I believe that I, can offer, ideas that I like to use when I'm helping people. I also have some social media presence. I have on Facebook, I'm just Cathy Merkel-Roddy. And then on Instagram, I am at Revealing the Healing. And similarly on YouTube at Revealing the Healing.
Right.
So
you also have a link tree.
I do.
You have a link tree, which has a lot of stuff on here.
Just lots of like blogs, YouTube,
banishing brain fog. The most important tool you have for healing any condition. Unmasking the culprits behind anxiety and PST. Oh my God, I need to read that one. 10 things to supercharge healing. All of this stuff is on her site, and I will post this on here. If you get a chance, when you get a chance, you need to just drop over to her site and just check it out. And you have all this really just your story. I'm gonna post this too. I'm gonna to read your story and stuff like that, and how for decades how you were a professional singer, and you're gonna sing for me, aren't you?
Yes,
will you sing for me?
I have to move to the piano, but
if
will.
You're okay, I definitely like Cathy. I would be honored to hear you sing, especially it's probably even more so knowing what you've gone through in your life and how you almost lost your voice.
Here's a couple links of clips of me when I was debilitated.
Right. Okay. Yes.
So,
you just sent them to me. I'm going to load them right up and take a listen to this.
Yeah.
Those of you who follow know I am a medical medium enthusiast. Started spiraling into the worst health of my life. Other health challenges and life circumstances.
When we were talking about your story, and I was reading it, it makes me cry. My eyes fill up with tears. I get so emotional because the journey that you had, and I'm sure that you faced a lot of that alone. Sorry, I'm sure your husband was there, but with the times when he wasn't, and you're there with your own thoughts, you can be your worst enemy, Yes. And I can tell you this, that no matter what any of you out there have gone through, whatever your ailment is, whatever trauma you have suffered, you're not alone. You're not. You've got people like me. You've got people like Cathy, and you've got I've got some other people coming up in different podcasts. You're not alone, and we will work through all this stuff together. And we're here as a family. And I just hope if you connect with me, stick with me. If you feel that if you connect with Cathy, go with Cathy and follow her and be with her and let her guide you. It doesn't matter. We're all here. There's a lot of people that have their hands out to you. What was that? What was that first? I can't remember. I don't have my notes with me. Okay. We were talking about. You said you. Hang on. End scene. My story. As you were traveling through your journey, you had a traumatic issue with your daughter. There's something that happened, and right around that time, I believe it was Easter Sunday in 2021. Something amazing happened, and you did not talk about it. And I want you to talk about this because you guys have. I'm going to put this widescreen on her, but listen to this. Go.
So, as we discussed earlier, the physical symptoms that you might be experiencing are a culmination of the mind, body, spirit. So we're all made of energy. And sometimes things get trapped in our body. Energies get trapped when we have a traumatic experience. Energies can get trapped. And I know from my own experience, I believe that the energies that happened during the trauma that I experienced got lodged in my throat chakra. And so a very interesting thing happened to me right before my voice started coming back. It was April of 2021. So it was approximately 2.5 years after I started my journey. Okay. It took me that long to actually regain my voice. I went through kind of an emotional, like, purging. I had this interaction with my daughter and was very distraught over it. So I basically had like a breakdown. I was on the floor sobbing and just like crying and letting the energy escape my body in a way that I really hadn't done since the trauma occurred in 2018. The very next day happened to be Easter Sunday. And so every morning my ritual would be to make my celery juice first thing in the morning, and I would practice saying my name because it was really annoying to me when my voice was at its worst. I couldn't even speak my own name, and that was so just disheartening because I couldn't meet someone and say, "Hi, my name is Cathy Merkel-Roddy," without it like crapping out. And so I started making my celery juice as usual, and I actually said my name, and I was like, it came out. I was shocked, and I kept doing it, and then I started saying some other things. Then I started singing a little bit, and I was amazed because this was the first time in more than 2.5 years, actually, more close to 3 years, that I could actually speak in a normal voice. So I was ecstatic. Of course, it lasted about 10 or 15 minutes at that point. It wasn't, very terribly long, but the very next day I was like, okay, it's on its way back. I just knew it was on its way back. So then by the end of the month, I was fully had my voice all day, and I was like astounded. But that's when I super started shouting from the rooftops about this healing journey because I had the physical proof. So I feel like before when I was talking to people about medical medium information and telling them all the things that I had used to heal myself or trying to heal myself, the healing hadn't happened yet. So it wasn't very compelling of a story. And so once I could say, look, now I can talk. And then the proof is in the pudding. So that was when I felt
my favorite story of yours. That's my favorite story. I'm sorry about everything that happened beforehand, but that's the pinnacle, the peak of your hard work and perseverance to get to that point, and just you didn't even realize what was going to happen until it happened that day. And it was like you said for a few minutes, and then like the next day it got a little bit better, and then like a week, a month later, and here we are now. We've been spending. I don't know. I think we've probably been on this thing for like an hour already, and your voice is still strong as it was when we first connected.
Yeah, no,
so it's amazing, absolutely amazing. Cathy, thank you so much for your story or sharing to us your story.
So before I go to the piano and leave a little outro for our wonderful podcast together, I just want to thank you having me. Absolutely. I'm so impressed with you, and your story has been such an inspiration, and I love your energy, and all your channel looks so awesome. And I think that definitely grow it into something really, really meaningful for a lot of people.
I think what we're going to do now is you're going to adjourn to the piano, and you're going to sing me a little song. Okay?
Yes.
All right, let's do it.
Right.
Go.
Thanks so much. All right, bye.
Here's a song I wrote right after my voice started coming back. This one's called Damaged.